The flight began smoothly, quiet and uneventful, but one red cap set off a chain of events that shattered everything into pieces. She believed she was in control, putting a passenger in his place, but little did she know that very passenger would be the one deciding if she'd even keep her seat. She had made her move, placed her bet, and now it was time to see how it would all play out. The morning unfolded like any other on a routine flight from New York to Los Angeles. Passengers filed in, tugging their carry-ons behind them, stuffing them into the overhead bins. Flight attendants weaved through the aisles, their smiles polished, their greetings flawlessly rehearsed. Among them was Kelly McFarland, a sharp, assertive stewardess, known for her no-nonsense attitude and unwavering stance on what she believed was right. Kelly didn't just perform her duties, she commanded the aisle. Everything was running smoothly until she saw him. A man, somewhere in his mid-40s, clean-cut, seated quietly in economy class. He didn't look like trouble, not at first glance. But there was one glaring detail that caught her attention. Perched on his head, bold and unapologetic, was a red baseball cap. The words "Make America Great Again" stood out like a flashing sign. Kelly's body tensed for a moment, her eyes narrowing. To her, that hat wasn't just fabric and stitching, it was a statement, a symbol, and one she simply couldn't ignore. The man, completely unaware of the silent storm brewing in her mind, adjusted his cap, leaned back, and flipped open a magazine. His calm, indifferent demeanor only seemed to make Kelly's irritation rise. As she moved through the cabin, handing out pre-flight drinks, her gaze kept drifting back to him, again and again, until finally, she couldn't hold back any longer. Stopping at his row, tray in hand, she spoke, her voice laced with thinly veiled sarcasm. "Nice choice of accessory," she remarked, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Trying to make a statement, huh?" The man barely glanced up, offering a polite but distant smile. "It's just a hat," he said, his voice even, before turning back to his magazine. Kelly's lips pressed into a thin line. Just a hat. Was he serious? Her blood simmered. The audacity. She could feel her principles pulling her forward, like a battle cry ringing in her ears. Back in the galley, her frustration boiled over as she vented to her fellow attendants. "Can you believe this guy? Parading around in that hat like it's no big deal? Do you even realize how offensive that is to people? I can't just let this slide." One of the senior attendants, trying to de-escalate the situation, responded gently, "Kelly, it's not our job to police people's fashion choices. Just let it go. Focus on the flight." Kelly scoffed. "Let it go? We have rules about offensive behavior on board. That hat is offensive. End of discussion." Ignoring her colleague's attempts to calm her down, Kelly straightened her posture and marched back down the aisle, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Stopping in front of the man's seat, she crossed her arms and met his gaze. "Sir," she said, her voice now firm and formal, "your hat is making other passengers uncomfortable. I'm going to have to ask you to remove it." The man slowly closed his magazine and looked up at her, his expression unreadable, calm, but unwavering. "Thank you for your concern," he said evenly, "but I'll be keeping it on." The firmness in his tone only fueled Kelly's determination. Her voice dropped, now colder. "Then I'm afraid I have to inform you that this behavior violates our policy. Either you remove the hat, or you'll be asked to leave the flight." A thick tension settled over the cabin. Passengers began whispering, some exchanging wide-eyed glances. The atmosphere shifted as murmurs spread through the rows. The man didn't argue. He simply stood, gathered his belongings with deliberate calm, and walked toward the exit, without a single word. Kelly should have felt victorious. She won, didn't she? But as she watched him leave, something gnawed at her. His composed, unshaken demeanor, his complete refusal to react, it made her feel as if she hadn't won at all. She pushed the thought away. She had done the right thing. Someone had to stand up for what was right. As the plane doors closed and the flight prepared for takeoff, Kelly resumed her duties, her head held high. But what she didn't know was that the real turbulence had only just begun. Hours later, as the plane touched down in Los Angeles, Kelly McFarland felt like She had won a personal battle. As passengers filed out, she stood tall, confident that her actions had been not only justified, but righteous. Sure, there had been murmurs, but in her mind, she was the one who had restored order. As her colleagues finished assisting the last of the travelers, Kelly gathered her belongings, already mentally preparing for her next flight. She couldn't wait to share the story with her friends, how she had handled that guy. But as she approached the exit, her steps faltered. Standing just outside the jet bridge was Mark Donovan, the chief operating officer of the airline. His tall frame, the crisp dark suit, the cold, unreadable expression. One look at him, and Kelly felt a chill creep down her spine. "Kelly," he said flatly, no pleasantries, no warmth. "We need to talk. Follow me." The way he said it, it wasn't a request. It was an order. Passengers and crew stole quick glances their way, but no one dared say a word. Kelly's confidence wavered, but she swallowed hard and nodded, following Mark through the terminal. He led her into a private office, a sterile, windowless room with a plain table and 2 chairs under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. Closing the door behind them, he didn't waste a second. "Do you know who you removed from that flight?" His tone was sharp, cutting like ice. Kelly straightened, trying to mask the unease creeping into her chest. "Some disruptive passenger," she said firmly. "He was wearing inappropriate attire, and I was ensuring the comfort of our other customers." Mark stared at her, his expression unmoving. Then, with a sharp motion, he dropped a thick stack of papers onto the table. The thud made Kelly flinch. "That disruptive passenger," Mark said slowly, "was Jacob Randolph." Her breath caught. "The owner of this airline?" Silence. Kelly's face went pale. It hit her like a sudden drop mid-flight. "Wait, what?" she whispered, barely able to get the words out. Mark leaned in, his voice unwavering. "Yes, Kelly. The man you humiliated, the one you kicked off the flight over a hat, owns this entire company. And now he wants to meet with you. Personally." Kelly's stomach plummeted. The confidence she had felt earlier, gone, replaced by cold, sinking dread. She tried to respond, to explain herself, but no words came. And Mark? He wasn't finished. "I strongly suggest," he said, voice dropping even lower, "that you think very carefully about what you're going to say next, because I promise you, Kelly, the consequences will be serious." As he opened the door and gestured for her to follow, Kelly felt the walls closing in, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. And for the first time, she realized the turbulence she had caused wasn't going to settle anytime soon.